So please welcome Ken.
How's your snacks burning? Because we might as well be informal. I'll probably just come and join you guys for the most part. Yeah, we'll see who makes it or not. Who was that youth making a difference? Okay, did you guys come to my workshop?
We're the volunteers.
Oh, okay.
We're the team members, so we're helping out.
So was anyone in my workshop at all? That's good. See, I need to know that, because then I know what's double and what's not double. Okay, so let's see. I think I'll start different with you guys, just to talk a little bit about the inception of where True Rebel came from, which is not something that I talk about usually. But I kind of got thrown into the speaking with youth thing. I took public speaking courses, and I kind of know what I'm doing with the whole public speaking thing. But when I started working at DAM, there was another guy who was speaking in individual grade 7 classes in our neighborhood up in Meadowvale, and he left the DAM, and I kind of took over for him. Started speaking in classes in grade 7 and 8 classes, and really kind of connecting with those youth in the smaller group contexts. And just kind of started to ask the question about where I thought the best connect was going to be. Because, you know, we're trying to draw out of kids, what's your experience of being, you know, a 12 or a 13-year-old, or even later into the high school years, and kind of trying to decide what is the best place to kind of engage. And just kind of started thinking about some of the typical things that get thought about when we think about teenagers. Reality is, if I go into a grade 6, 7, 8 situation, if I'm doing a big assembly type format, I did one not too long ago, and I just asked the kids in that crowd, what do teenagers do? I just asked them the question, what do teenagers do? And they started throwing out stuff like, teenagers do drugs, they argue with their parents, all of these different things. And I always find it fascinating, because I don't ask what negative things do teenagers do, right? What bad things do teenagers do? All I have to ask is, what do teenagers do? First thing that comes up is all of this negative stuff, right? And, you can think about the statistics around smoking cigarettes, alcohol use. These are stats that I used to look at semi-regularly. There used to be an annual report that came out across Ontario for our school-age students between like grade 7 and 12 in terms of different substances that kids were using, and noticing certain things. Particularly, I was interested in this thing that happened between grade 8 and grade 9, because and focusing in mainly on smoking cigarettes and smoking weed, because the statistics were virtually identical. Right? And if I go into a grade 7 classroom and ask the kids, who here knows that smoking is stupid? Every hand goes up in the air. Every hand. We've done a good job of educating our kids to know that that's not a smart idea, that it's stupid, right? All that kind of stuff. But I know statistics show me that 2% in grade 7, 3% in grade 8 try smoking at some point during that year. So that's interesting in and of itself. Because, we have a saying that says knowledge is power. But yet our kids have the knowledge that smoking is stupid, but something else is counteracting that. There's something else going on that maybe is more powerful than knowledge, that is making them go against what they know is a smarter idea, which would be not smoking. But then when we get to grade 9, we see the most exponential growth that we'll ever see in terms of the amount of kids who are making these choices. So it goes from about 3% in grade 8 to between like 15 and 18% in grade 9 who try smoking cigarettes or weed. The numbers are virtually identical. And some of that stuff made me think about this whole idea of teenage rebellion and what that thing is all about, because it's a term that gets thrown out a lot. A lot of people say, well, my kids rebelled, or you'll even hear people my age going, oh, I was a rebellious kid. When I was a youth, I rebelled. And I suppose my own story, I could use those words. But it really made me think, you know what, some of that stuff is not rebellion. That's not rebellion. Because we've got statistics for that stuff. In fact, it's common. And by the time we get into grade 12, some of the statistics in these schools are that more than half of the kids are smoking weed, at least at some point during their grade 12 year. So where's the rebellion in that? Right? Rebellion is about taking a stand against the rules, right? Going against the flow, breaking the rules. And I kind of started to think, I like that. I like that part of rebellion. I like that idea and that concept, because I see a lot of people who are terrified to break the rules. And in fact, the reason that they often are starting smoking, starting drinking, doing drugs in the first place is specifically because they want to fit in, not because they want to stand out, not because they want to rebel. And so, conversely to that, I really started to ask my question, well, what would real rebellion look like? What would it really mean to be a true rebel? And that's where the name for the blog came from, and the name for what really started before a blog, that in all of the talks that I would do with these kids, I would make the True Rebel Challenge. And the True Rebel Challenge, simply put, is this: that every person we meet, we treat them with love and dignity and respect. Which in and of itself sounds okay, but I don't think we realize how hard that's really going to be. So none of you guys were at YMAD, so I'll stand for a little bit and do a little bit, because I like to analyze and specifically and help us recognize what friendship looks like a little bit. So if I walk into the typical school hallway on a Monday morning and I can blend in with the lockers, I might hear a conversation that sounds like this. Yo, what's up, idiot? Not much, loser. How was your weekend? Good, because I didn't see you. Ah, shut up. And if I do this conversation in any classroom setting, in grade 6s and 7s as well as through high school, they all recognize that this is the conversation between two friends. Two friends in the hallway having a normal conversation with one another. So I like to break that down and kind of ask the question, why? Why are we as friends talking to one another in this way? And I get all kinds of really fascinating answers. I get kids telling me, oh, well, we're just joking around, right? It's just fun, and it's fun, right? Now, I know funny, and that's not really it. I see what they're saying. I'll maybe get back there in a minute. I've even had some kids go so far as to tell me, this conversation reveals trust. Like, oh, wow, okay, idiot loser, that's interesting. Tell me how this conversation reveals trust. And they'll be like, well, I know that we are so close, we are so tight, we have such a good connection that I can call you a loser and you're going to know that it's all good. Right? That I don't mean it. Okay, that's always a more fascinating one to me. I mean, psychology tells me this, that for every insult that gets said to me, it takes 10 positives. 10 positives to make up for that in my sense of self-worth, my self-esteem, my value of myself. So even if it's a joke, if every day what I'm hearing is loser, 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 idiot, 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 that takes root. I think that we also see that some of the arguments for why talking like this to one another is okay begins to fall apart when I start to deconstruct it a little bit and throw in some curveballs. So let's say it's a Monday morning, my friend approaches me and says, hey, yo, what's up, idiot? And I respond by saying, yo, man, why do you gotta call me an idiot? That really hurts my feelings. See, when I do that scenario in front of these same kids, I get some snickers and some laughter, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Nobody's going to do that. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't say to your friend, don't call me an idiot. And then I have to ask the question, why? Why wouldn't you say that? I just told you, psychology tells me that it does hurt my feelings. I don't like being called an idiot. I don't like being called a loser. So why would I not tell my friend that? And then when it starts to get interesting, because we realize, well, I'm not going to say that because in this situation, I'm actually the one breaking the rules. This person is following the rules of normal social engagement. They came to their friend, they said, hey, what's up, idiot? I'm the one who broke the rules because I stopped that interaction and I said, wait a minute, I don't like this, it hurts my feelings. They might actually even say something to me like, yo, man, like, why are you going to get so upset for? I'm just joking, man. What's your problem? He's called me an idiot. Now he's asking me what my problem is. And it actually kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense because I'm the one breaking the rules of engagement. I'm the one that's kind of going against this unwritten, unseen rule book of how we're supposed to interact with one another. I'm just supposed to call him a loser and everything's fine. And we just go about our day. But the reality is that what we begin to understand is the way we interact with the reason why we interact with one another this way, even though we don't like it, is because we're afraid to break the rules. We're afraid to act in a different way. We just go along with it because for the most part, heading through middle school and high school, we just want to kind of fly under the radar and not make ourselves too noticeable. Because the reality is that the majority of the kids walking through the school doors every day know this. If I say something or do something that can be made fun of, I'm going to get made fun of. And when we are in that kind of situation and circumstance every day, knowing that if I do or say something that can be made fun of, I'm going to be, we begin to check all of our actions, all of our words, through this filter of, is this going to be okay? And that puts us on the defensive. In some ways, it puts us in survival mode every day. I wake up, I make the choice of what I'm going to wear today. I make the choice of what I'm going to talk about. Do I dare say that I like this band? Do I dare say that I enjoy this? Or am I going to get made fun of? And you can see how this begins to tie to why we're seeing such record levels of stress, anxiety, depression among this age group of grade 7 through grade 12, when all of our social engagements begin to be coded not in trust, not in respect, but in fear. The reason we talk to one another this way is because we've learned it. The reason we talk to one another this way is out of fear. Fear of stepping outside of that. Fear of breaking that rule book. Fear of not just kind of following the rules of engagement. That's why it takes true rebel. It takes the courage to break rules, to be someone who says, wait a minute, I'm going to act in a different way. And I think that this is the main form of violence that we're experiencing in our schools every day. Psychological violence, a full frontal assault on people's emotions, on their psyche, on their self-esteem, their sense of self-worth. Mike, take it easy, man. Have a good drive. You too. Psychological violence. And it's really, I love taking these two guys on a Monday morning having their conversation because some fascinating things have come out of it. You know, I'm like, say, okay, so what makes you think that these guys are gay? Well, they said they love each other. I'm like, oh, okay, so only gay guys can love each other. Oh, no, that's not what I mean, right? But they get all uncomfortable. They're having difficulty describing it. So one of my favorite things to do in a classroom is to say, okay, guys, raise your hand if you love your friends. And usually there are some guys who raise their hand right away, but the majority do something that looks like this. Which just proves my point. They're just checking out, is this okay? Is this alright? Am I going to be made fun of for this? Is this within this little rule book? And then there's some guys who just don't raise their hand at all. And I get lots of questions. Like, what do you mean? Like, love them how? Right? Like, I like my friends, but love? Or I get, yo man, I love them like a friend. Right? All of these little provisos, all of these little things to say, oh, I love them, but, you know, I just got to make sure that you know what I mean when I'm saying that I love my friends. But then I say, well, raise your hand, guys, if you love your mom. Hands go up in the air. No one's looking around. No one's seeing if it's okay. Nobody is stopping and saying, what do you mean, man? Love my mom how? Yo, like, I love her like a mom. And nobody's asking me those questions, which is really, really fascinating. And they say, well, it's different. It's different to my mom. I'm like, no, it's not different. I asked you if you loved your friends. I didn't ask you if you wanted to make out with them. That's different. So when I asked you if you loved your mom, you knew I wasn't asking if you wanted to make out with her. That's not my area. I don't deal with that stuff. But it's very interesting what happens here. This concept of love and what it means between, you know, talking about mom to when I'm talking about friends, and it takes on a whole different form. It takes on a whole different form. I'll often say, ladies, careful, because you can see that these guys don't have any concept of love between friends and peers that isn't affiliated sexually. It's tied in their mind. Do I love my friends? What do you mean? Right? So what does that mean? What is that going to mean about healthy peer-to-peer relationships if we don't have an understanding of love that isn't somehow tied to other ideologies and concepts. Now the girls always think they're off the hook by this point. Some of them are even whispering, yeah, see guys, man, when it comes to love, they're so stupid. You know, they could be more like us. And it's true. If I say, hey girls, raise your hand if you love your friends, hands go in the air. And then the guys are like, yeah, but they got the question second. There's been extra information, right? But the reality is the girls raise their hand. If I would ask them first, they would raise their hand. It's okay for girls to say I love you to friends, hug their friends, all that kind of stuff. But here's the issue when it comes to the lovely women who I interact with between middle school and high school, is that I can love you today and I can hate your guts tomorrow. And that's the problem. That's where this misunderstanding of what love is comes in with our young women. Because, you can be my bestie today, and then something gets spread around, Twitter, Facebook, rumor going on, a guy gets in the middle, and the next day, and I'll often get the girls to raise their hand. You ever had a friend, was a really tight friend, and then you became not friends at all, and maybe even enemies, and that is the majority. It's a very, very, very common experience. So is that what love is? Is that what love is all about? Is that what it means? I can love you today and hate you tomorrow? So it's very important for me, if I'm going to be teaching about what it means to be a true rebel, to have a proper understanding about what love is and have a new definition to work from, so that we're all on the same page and we understand one another. Because when I talk about love, I'm talking about love that would be defined this way. That love is a choice. And it's a choice that I make that's primarily rooted in how I treat you. Primarily rooted in how I treat you. So if I ask you, do you love your friends? What I'm really asking is, how do you treat your friends? Or when I ask you, do you love your mom? Maybe what I'm really asking is, how do you treat your mom? And this is going to be a very important definition for us. Because a lot of us have seen, witnessed, or even experienced relationships where that word love gets thrown around, but there's violence. And maybe if it's not physical violence, it'll be the psychological violence and emotional violence and neglect and abuse of a variety of different kinds. And that word love gets thrown in. When we have a definition like this, then we can know with certainty and definitively that that is not love. And that is not what love looks like. And that's why I can say, I love my wife and I love my kids and I love my friends and I love you guys in this room. And some people think that's weird, and they're like, yo, you don't even know me, it doesn't matter. I loved you before you even walked in the room. Why? Because I had already made a commitment that in the interactions I have with you, I want to leave a positive impact on your life and have a positive role in it. I want to lift you up and I don't want to tear you down. I want to see good things for you and not negative things for you. And that's love. That's the root of it. That's the heart of it. And it's not even rooted in what you do at all. See, I can choose to love you and choose to build you up, and you don't have to reciprocate that. You might choose not to. You might choose to kick me in the shins and spit in my eye. Now, that would hurt and be gross. But I still have a choice. Still. And that, I think, is where things get off the rails for a lot of people. We say, whoa, this love thing is too hard. This challenge to treat everyone with love, dignity, and respect gets real hard right about now. Because I might feel like if you hit me, you deserve for me to hit you back. But it's not about that. You kick me in the shins and spit in my eye, and I still have a choice to honor you, to treat you with respect and dignity, to bring humanity back into the middle of the ring. See, I like asking hard questions like, I'll ask the guys in the classroom, what if there's a guy that you know and he hits your sister? What do you want to do to that guy? Yo, man, I'm going to kick that guy's ass, man. I'm going to beat him down. Why? Well, because he hit my sister. So what? So why are you going to hit him? Well, because I'm going to teach him. What are you going to teach him, man? I'm going to teach him not to hit my sister. But see, the problem has already started. I've already heard part of the problem that's crept in for a lot of us, and the lie that a lot of us learn even in childhood. And that lie was this, that violence teaches. And that violence is an effective teaching tool. But I like to reject that paradigm altogether because I don't think that we're going to teach this young man anything. In fact, if we teach him anything, it's going to be this: that if I'm bigger than you and I'm stronger than you, I can make you do what I want you to do. And that's a paradigm that this young man was already working from. He was working from it the moment that he hit your sister because he was bigger than her and because he was stronger than her. You're operating out of the same worldview. You're operating out of the same paradigm. There's a different way to be. There's a more radical way to be. There's a choice to make that is so difficult and so hard. But I think it's a choice that is at the very root of the issues surrounding diversity and inclusion. And that is that we can choose love in the face of violence. And we can choose love in the face of all sorts of different things. And we have a lot of difficulty with this. Now the hockey playoffs are on. You guys have probably noticed that. Has anyone been forced to watch any hockey at all yet? No, nothing hasn't happened for you guys. I'm a big hockey fan. I haven't been forced at all. But there's a problem, see, because everyone's all excited because the Toronto Maple Leafs are back in the playoffs after 9 years of not being in the playoffs. But the problem is that the team that they got pitted up against, is my favorite team in the whole world. The team that I've been cheering for since I was a little kid, the Boston Bruins. Now this might seem like, oh, big deal, we're talking about hockey now. Why are we talking about hockey? And I'll tell you why we're talking about hockey. Because it gives me just a little glimpse of how far we are from really understanding what diversity and inclusion means. Because when it's game day, out comes my jersey. And I'm walking the street and I'm wearing my Bruins jersey and I'm walking around, big B on my chest. And now, because the Leafs are in the playoffs against the Bruins, kids will roll down school bus windows and yell at me out the window. Yo, the Bruins suck! Okay, thank you for that intelligent analysis of the hockey team that I cheer for. Right? And then you know what? In some ways it seems like not a big deal. We giggle about it, we laugh about it, but it just makes me think. And it is a funny thing, because it's just the hockey team that I cheer for. But the reality is, there are people, and most of you in this room will have had experiences to this effect, that when we are different, and when we display something that is not the same as the majority dominant culture, that people think it's okay to call that out and to treat us differently. And we're a long way away. In fact, I walked into a grade 8 classroom yesterday to have a conversation with them, and the first thing, because it was game day and I'm wearing my jersey and I sit down, and the first thing the guys think that they can call me out on that and be like, yo man, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that you're wearing that, right? Or even this lady who was in the grocery store, she was like behind me, yo, you shouldn't be allowed to wear that in here. I'm like, what are you? I was a little maybe on edge that day. I don't know. I thought it was funny actually. I turned to her and I said, "Oh, so you believe in fascism?" She did. I don't know if you understand that, but that just means that, you know, we can't choose what we wear. We can't choose what we do, right? It's rule. And anyway, she's like, "No, I'm not a fascist." Anyway, it was pretty funny. But as you can see, these are just little tiny examples rooted in sport of the type of thing that happens every day on a variety of different levels, right? Things that I began to understand, and I have visible tattoos, and you guys can see that, and I have visible tattoos for a reason. Part of the main reason that I have visible tattoos is so that I, in some way, reject this notion of privilege that comes with looking a certain way and dressing a certain way and being from a certain type of culture, in my case being a white male, and what that brings with it. Because it brings a certain amount of privilege automatically that I just reject outright. That privilege ought to exist in any way, shape, or form. And it does. And it doesn't make it the same that I have tattoos as compared to people who were born of a certain color, who have had to experience a certain level of prejudice in their lives every day just because of the gender that they were born or the culture from which they were born. However, I have been so pleased and privileged, and it has been an absolute joy in my life to be embraced by so many different people of culture who have at least brought me under their wing and helped me to understand and realize what it means to be a person of color in a society where the dominant is not the same as your face looks. And what that means to be unrepresented and misrepresented. and at times hated. There was some other person invited to this realized that her husband. So she comes to the event, and two men are standing security guards, and they won't let her. This is who I am. My husband, they would not let her go. Big a deal, maybe, because the security protocols. It's a woman with brown skin. White woman after white person came, and went all to any part of death. Let me escort you down. While this woman is left, and she couldn't hold it back. Educated, respect, being absolute dirt, just. And the thing, if you guys realize, a lot of people who look like do not think that this at all anymore ever. We and in many ways, and this isn't just a complexion as me. And when we hear about poverty in which our own are living in this country, forget about it. And not, because if you can't pull yourself, then you can't be the different types of things. Write down again back into. I'll ask a lot of people and say, grade 8s, why are you working? And some of those kids say, and I'm like, it's stressful, but I believe that apply having the skills that you have. 4 years from high school. It'll be harder, and for some of it will be easier, but you'll be able. In fact, if it requires, I believe that only graduate from high school courses, bar learning disorders, and maybe even then, given and guidance. Even though I know all kinds of kids who are failing whole semester in high school diploma. Why? Why is that? The capacity to do it. Playing that capacity. First answers that I always get lazy. To which after we've had some more conversation, I'm happy if you think I'm lazy. If what I don't want you to say, I'm suffering at home every day. If you just think I'm lazy, that's why I can't do my school. When they don't give a shit about math because of what's happening every day. Health. Or poverty. And usually working like crazy, food on the table and clothes on all the time. And so I'm happy. Well, these are the things that and people are not sharing. Especially often have difficulty paying and sharing because this broken hasn't given us have our voice be heard. So desperate the voice. Now that sounds weird, but we so desperate the stories of those things that they will not. Worried about what clothes we're going to do and keep my head below the surface, kind of fit in. And say to grade 8 students, into grade 9, the script a little bit. Realize that least power in the high school. And that's the feeling. And like they have least power. A situation where they were the only worried about getting bullied, initiation, they're worried about violence. The reality is they've got the most time. I think a study just came, my wife told me about, a study came out that showed that it takes in 3 to 5 years, the entire culture of a school. 5 years. It's intense. And if they go, because I had this one girl, there's so many smart men, like they just know how it works. We need to hear, I say, as I'm going. This one girl, was just kind of saying, in high school. That's because we don't know the way it works. I said, well, how are you going to go from the older kids? Right there, and I said, see, that's the problem is that if we keep learning older kids, nothing's because we're going to find out this is the way to do this, and these clothes, and you listen to this, and we just keep this up. Rather than going in, this is the type of school. I'm so excited to be a part of school that I would be proud to be. This is what we are going to create. That is what we are going to create to change everything. We could pry students out of this fear opportunity for us, because if that's going to ripple out into the neighborhoods and into the community. What would it mean? What would a high school we took away unincluded? High school mean? What would the team we took away the not going to be accepted for who I am? If it was just gone, if we knew that there was going to be no kid ever to be loved or included. It's just canvas. The opportunities and possibilities. All of this record and anxiety that we're seeing. We would see many issues, and the numbers. We would see addiction, a substance really diminish. AIDS increase. We would participating in extracurricular to be one of the very best teenagers throughout. There's just so ways that would just happen. And how do we do that place where it goes into a high school going to be the best? I see how the kids treat each other. I see how everybody is participating. And in ways it seems like a total pipe. Man, it is never going to be that. I don't believe that. What I do, I sit in a room like with you guys. I hope for the possibility of if I'm sitting in a grade 7 or 8, that almost amazing. Yes, that's. But we're so wrapped in this cocoon of making it be able. I think this issue of diversity is so huge, and I see from this generation is an opportunity to blow this thing. Because it isn't just about culture. The things like mental disabilities, different things. People get drawn into this rather than pushed out to the fringes of our society, but when everybody embraced. That's what the image was. So the issue of diversity, I think that one is such a... See it in our House of Commons, embracing one another in the midst. Argue in the middle of diversity. We yell at one another. We don't know, well, you're right wing and I'm... How do we embrace? So there's lots of questions. Don't have all the answers, but come from me. I think hopefully people who have to become true rebels, total credit for that, by the way. Luther King Jr. and his teachings and different things, probably the on this particular world being a true rebel kind of self towards the and because when you're in a room full about love, storming, it's really like Martin Luther King Jr. because he's so and he talked about all the time, nonstop. It's people like that, Mother Teresa, and some of give us a little bit of to stand on new concepts. For them yet. We have not said things are definitely going to be the ones who enact them. So anyway, I'm happy now and kind of talk questions or whatever. So.
I feel first.
Yeah, basically.
I found the most interesting concept of love. I had this conversation with my guy friends. I don't know what love is, or I don't want that, but hearing that it's a choice. It's not
a lot. I know that the dam, not when a youth walk, welcome them. I know that something's happening, that is being created, and that happens all the time. I think is the heart of what we're doing. Relational work with all youth, not drop-in centers. That's for truth and all of these terms that people like to put on teens. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Every youth in our community needs a place, needs family, needs hope, needs home, needs people who are going to encourage. And I think, and we somehow. Right? We tell the kids too. I've been this year in my as a teenager, relationship with adults. Less relationship noise. You need more. Because those relationships are going to be vital. Multi-generational. We don't necessarily do this very well. Ghettoize ourselves today, right? The adult school and all of our programs group a lot. We lose the gen is so right. We're losing the generations earlier than to draw on, right? Having grandpa is important because we've come here from that extended family, and I don't live here, and everyone there just us, and that's when I think that this ability to create and grow community together again becomes next door neighbor becomes auntie. I know that in the Caribbean this is often the way that it is. To be really related by cousins, right? I've been to the Caribbean quite a bit. I love it there. You guys aren't great. Come and be with me on. But I like some. I don't want to something because they think they did something okay. Good about us creating together that becomes family. Right? I think that that's what a lot of youth are trying to do. They begin clinging to their friends in something. But one more thing, we can't be expecting meaningful and nurturing looks like. I think that fatal mistakes that maybe that I see throughout the teenage from this route that we really need to be loved, but we don't know what that looks like. Desperately want this, and we're searching. Right? The other day, and I said something I've said lots of times. Love and sex are not the same thing. And this young man said, why? That's a problem, man. If I say sex and love, you don't get that. And you don't understand. So quite able to and that with that young man. So important for us and for youth to know that. Because a lot of us relationship, that's what it is. And that is not good. Right? And a lot of that stuff, that's good time in its proper place. But that's not. And I think that love is before we start work stuff, but that's not usually the case. This was love. 18-year-old girls that are getting pregnant and the vast majority of them, I don't know. Love. There was just sex. And they thought they knew what love was. At the end of the day, just another little bit of my rant. Listen, I've made every mistake that I want teenagers not to make. Right? Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. I something good enough. And I have to believe that that's true. They're going to be like, well, I need to make it's your funeral, boss. Basically, enough people like you that have the wisdom to learn it. Because I find out that my friend smokes weed as a teenager. I'm not talking about me because I was the kid smoking weed, but you know, if I find out this kid is smoking weed and they're my friend, you know, my reaction doesn't have to be, yo man, what are you doing? That's so stupid, guy. Right? I don't have to do that. I can be like, I don't think that's the greatest choice. Right? I wish that you wouldn't do that. But the majority of my interaction with him is going to just be to love him and still be his friend. And be like, yo, you know, you make that decision. If that's what you want to do, I'm going to encourage you not to do it. I'm going to model not doing it. But I'm going to love you anyway. Because you're going to need someone who's there, who's loving you, who's not doing it the day that you realize that you don't want to be doing this anymore. Because that happens for a lot of kids. I have met so many kids who have kind of got caught up in the whole, our friends get high together, right? Very, very common. But then, when they approach a place where they feel in their own life that smoking weed is getting in the way, and that happens a lot, and it does get in the way, a lot of kids find that it's difficult for them to quit because their social relationships are caught up in the activity of smoking weed together. And I call it social addiction, right? They don't know how to get away from it because this is what their relationships are rooted in, and they're afraid that if they don't do it, they won't have any friendships left. Very common. Heard that story lots of times. I've also heard people just straight up say, I am addicted to weed. And people will laugh at them because it's not physically addictive. But addiction, to me, is not just about physiology. Addiction is about when does something become so important to you that it is taking priority and precedence and getting in the way of interfering with and destroying other parts of your life. Relationships, priorities, you know, different things like that.
For me, it was like, well, I was smoking, but I have a friend who's...
If you do, I'm going to love you. Anyway.
Yeah, I know, but like my friend, she smokes a lot of marijuana, and what I found really ridiculous, well, she has a boyfriend, and they both of them are really, like, they smoke a lot of weed, both of them decided they're going to quit, because her mom caught her in it. But he basically smoked again without her, and she found out, and they broke up because of that one solid reason. And I was looking at it, and I was just like, really, like a 2-year relationship over marijuana. I was like, if it's a problem, try to solve it, but over marijuana. She's like, nope, it's kind of like cheating on me, he's smoking marijuana without me, and I was like addicted to it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, all right. And she was trying to justify, like, and she's like, I don't understand why you don't do it, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, to be honest, even if I wanted to do it, I don't like the smell of it. Yeah. So if I don't like something that doesn't smell, I'm not going to have it. So, yeah. I
got a pinched nerve in my neck right now. 2 weeks ago, I was in a lot of pain. I would have been pretty tempted to smoke a little bit. At that moment, I was kind of like, where's the weed? But yeah, I think that that's an interesting scenario. I think what often happens is people lash out because we're very defensive as people, you know, just in general. I think that maybe breaking up was an okay thing to do, but not to put the blame on him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that maybe breaking up was an okay thing to do, but at the end of the day, that girl needs to just be like, it's because of me. It's because I know I'm addicted, and I cannot be in a relationship where this is going to be an ongoing temptation because I need to make the best choices for me. See, that answer I like. Right? The answer, he's cheated, him, he, that, right? That.
I couldn't stop, like, I tried so hard to, like, not to laugh because the fact that you think he was cheating on her with marijuana, it's not like with another woman, but with
Mary
marijuana.
Jane, it's Mary Jane.
I was like, oh, there's something very appropriate about this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then I was like, you know, do you want to own up to the fact that you're just addicted? Like, I was like, look, I have no problem with you smoking marijuana, just own up to it. And she's like, there's nothing to own up to. I was like, okay, alright.
Yeah, weed's a really interesting one. You know, there's this whole realm of what I call pot propaganda out there. You know, like you meet almost any grade 7 kid and they know that smoking weed is stupid. But you meet half the grade 10 kids out there and they think there's nothing wrong with it. And in fact, some of them think that they're like some noble freedom fighter because they smoke weed. And it's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. You know, like, okay, so you're going to smoke weed? I can't say too much about that. I was smoking weed when I was that age too. But there's just been this whole thing built around it that didn't exist, I think, then, or did to a certain extent, but it wasn't like I didn't think I was a freedom fighter. I just thought I wanted to get high, right? And there's a level of honesty to that I think is missing now. But the propaganda thing is huge, man. Like, it's funny because when you work with the youth for a certain amount of time, like I've been working at the dam for over 9 years now, and every 15-year-old kid who comes up each year thinks they're telling me something new about weed, right? Wait. Let me tell you why weed is amazing and why you should like it that I get high. And you know what? I gotta listen, and I gotta love and embrace that young man or young lady, whoever it happens to be that's sharing it. But at the same time, I just feel like going, dude, whatever you're gonna tell me, I've heard it a million times, and I probably once thought it myself, but that's just the thing. Working with youth is fun, but it does take a certain amount of temperament, because there are some days where a 14-year-old breaking up, her boyfriend broke up with her, and in light of things like the Boston bombing and different things, you kind of want to say, listen, there's other problems in the world, but you can't do that, because it is the most, at that moment it is the center of the universe, and empathy takes effort, right? That's what love does. Love takes effort. It takes energy, right? And I think that if you think about your parents, and if I think about my parenting, the worst moments come when you're tired, right? And I've spoken in parents groups too, and I'm just like, man, parenting tired is one of the hardest things. That's when we make our mistakes, because it takes energy and effort to remember love, to remember to put that in the middle of the ring and say, okay, how do I choose love right now? How do I choose to be creative? Because parenting and friendship, when it's rooted in love, takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of creativity to think about how do I engage the situation? How do I engage, my two friends are having a falling out. How do I engage the situation, right? And that's what I try to do in some of my talks too, is just to get kids thinking critically, right? So I do this one situation where I pretend to be a girl's best friend, and we're talking, and I'm like, did you hear what Brittany did? And the situation is that Brittany is spreading rumors that my friend is a bitch and a slut and all of these different things, and it's going out, and she's putting that stuff all over the place, and I get them to think about, how are you going to respond? How are you going to respond to the situation? And they're smart, and they've had these types of interactions before, so they come up with some stuff, right? But I get them to be bold, so some of them are like, we're going to beat her up, we're going to go, we're going to go cuss her out. And oh man, there's nothing worse than two girls cussing each other out. That is like, man. And all of my time working with youth, that's probably my least favorite thing in the world, is two girls cussing each other out. I mean, you might as well just plug your ears and go, la, 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 like no one's listening to anyone. It's just noise and coming up with the most vile things that I can think to say about someone. Anyway. But just trying to get them to engage their critical thinking, right? Because then it comes up, and I actually think that this is my favorite answer to the situation, is engaging guidance or someone in the school to facilitate a conversation between the two girls, right? Not getting anyone in trouble, but to facilitate a conversation between the two girls. And it's great because, there's at least half of the class who thinks that that's just the stupidest idea in the world. Why would we involve adults? Why would we involve a guidance counselor or a teacher or anyone from the school? That's ratting, that's snitching, that's tattle, There's a big difference between tattletaling, by the way, and what I'm talking about. Tattletaling and snitching works like this. This person did something wrong and I want them punished. You go deal with that person of authority. That's snitching and tattletaling. What I'm talking about is something called reconciliation. Reconciliation is about making things right, restoring things to good relationship, right? So if Brittany is telling rumors about me, the most mature response is, how do we set these relationships right? Because something's going on with Brittany that's not okay. Someone who feels that she needs to spread rumors and all that kind of stuff, something's not all right there, and it's a very hard thing to do. If someone's hurting me, to think, oh, I wonder what's going on with them. That's hard. That's really hard to do. But what I think that situation does is it just creates an environment, because if I go and try to talk to Brittany on my own, and her friends are around, and my friends are around, that it just talks into one of those cuss sessions, or people are trying to get a fight going or whatever, right? But if I try to facilitate a conversation with someone else, with a mediator, with a person of authority, we can actually have a conversation. And I can treat Brittany with honor and dignity and respect and love. And it might not work. It might not work. She might not listen and just come back the next day and do the same thing. But I know at least I tried to do something the proper way. Some other people say I'll just ignore it. Whatever, she can say what she wants. It doesn't. But I don't think that that's the right option either, because it's hurtful. Because someone spreading stuff about you like that, that's not okay. And I don't like to see someone hurt in that way, because we cannot, and well, we can, but it's very damaging for us to shut out our emotions and our hurt and our pain around certain things like that. You remember how I said I really want to hear the voices of youth expressing their pain? That's one of them, right? This person called me these things, and it hurts. And I don't like it, and I saw people look at me funny after they heard those rumors, and that hurts. We need to learn to speak these things out, not only so that we can deal with the situation and see a stop to it, but also that I can experience real healing in my life. And that really is my favorite place to actually engage the marijuana conversation. Because weed is a painkiller. That's what it does. That's its medicinal purpose, right? And in a lot of ways, if I got shot in the leg and I took a painkiller, it's going to kill the pain, but it's not going to do what I need it to do. I need surgery. Right? I need to get that bullet out. I need that to be clean. I need a doctor, professionals to look at that and deal with it. Because this is a preventable wound. We can deal with this, right? It hurts like crazy, and there might be some long-term damage, but I'm not going to die from this. But if I only take a painkiller, it's going to get infected. That infection is going to spread. If I keep just taking a painkiller, eventually I will die from that wound. In many cases, where we think that sharing any type of pain is weakness, and we don't want to show any weakness. We got to be strong all the time. So we have this mass self-medication going on, but ultimately, it's not going to last. We're going to need to deal with whatever pain and brokenness there is in our life eventually. It'll come out. It's going to come out in the wash. It's definitely going to come up again. And there are too many people that I see that are my age that are just now beginning to unpack some of the things that they never dealt with earlier in their lives, because their coping mechanisms are failing. And that's what weed in a lot of ways is. It's one of the coping mechanisms that people find. Just like smoking cigarettes or drinking, not at the beginning, but often then they become the coping mechanisms that people find to deal with the pain and brokenness in their life, rather than being able to work through it to a place of healing. And working through it to a place of healing, that comes in community and through relationships. Yeah.
I have a question. So, how do you tell youth to have the courage to be the first ones to come out, especially in collegiate high schools? How do you tell them to make that first step, especially those who have already been physically or emotionally bullied because
absolutely. And it's going to be very hard for people who have already made an attempt and been shut down. So there's a couple of ways. One is that I'm doing this corporately, right? So every grade 8 who I'm talking to is getting the same message, right? And if they're going to a high school, like in this case would be Meadowvale Secondary School, they can know that there's going to be a large contingent of other grade 9s who have heard this same message, right? So they know that. There's a common language that has been given. And an opportunity for them to say, yo, remember when we learned this? Let's do this. Let's go for it. The other thing is that little fun challenges, right? So start small. Can you go for an entire lunch hour without insulting anyone? Right? Or can you go through a whole lunch hour only saying positive things in a non-sarcastic tone? Right? Because if you don't say that, people walk around going, oh, you look so pretty today. That's not positive. So little challenges like that, because part of the deal is for a lot of us, we're going to have to actually reroute our brain. And that's science. That's just true. We're going to have to teach ourselves a new habit. That's what happens when we teach ourselves a new habit. We change the chemistry of our brain. And we are going to have to learn the new habits of how to be positive, how to treat people with love, how to resolve problems and issues in a new way, how not to just jump to the sarcastic comment or to the violence or to whatever it is, right? So we need things like a lunch hour where we're only saying positive things, because it takes practice. When I was a teenager, I practiced how to make fun of people real good, and I was excellent at it. And being sarcastic and knocking people down. And I'll tell you what, now I'm 35 years old, and things happen, and I still will get a quick-witted response or something negative to say will sometimes still jump to the back of my mind. Not as much, and not all the time. It's less and less, but it still happens, and I still have to suppress that instinct from time to time, because during the teenage years is when our brains are often really fusing themselves in sync with our habits. So habits that we develop at this age, we will often carry throughout the rest of our lives. Doesn't mean that we can't change. We can, but it gets a lot harder. It's like going through a jungle with a machete instead of on a highway. A little harder going. So that's where the encouragement is. I have my own email and my blog, so I encourage the kids. There it is, right there. If you have questions, I'm here to support you. In the case of when we're in Meadowvale, I get to say I live right here in the community too, right? If you see me, you can come and ask me a question. But I do wish that it was a little bit more formal, right? Meaning that maybe there was a curriculum for this, or very specific challenges throughout the year. I have an idea that sprouted for the first day of school for this September in the 3 communities where our drop-ins are, to get a bunch of youth and do all kinds of crazy sidewalk chalk all around the school and all around the sidewalks of school and some of the routes going towards the school on the first day of school, full of all kinds of positive messages and hopeful things and bright colors, just to get kids ready for that first day of school, walking into school with messages that say, this can be something amazing, and let's make it something amazing. And I think that it takes that, right? And September 2 is going to wear off by September 11, so you got to keep going and keep finding ways to kind of inspire it, because I don't think our character ed is going to hack it unless our schools are taking that very seriously and building something into our everyday experience of being in high school that brings us, everybody, into the center of the ring and saying, we're community together. How do we make this community together? I mean, shoot, it's going to be the majority of our time spent during the day is being in that high school. How do we do this well together in a way that people are being embraced and not falling by the wayside? We do not need any more gay kids killing themselves in our high school. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? And again, if I'm talking about diversity of opinions, right? I don't care what you think about the morality of what's going on. I care that you care about the kid, right? I care that you care about this person as a person, worthy of dignity and honor and respect and humanity, right? That's the key. That's the first place. And that's not tolerance either. Tolerance is cheap. Tolerance is, oh, I'll put up with you. I'm not talking about tolerance. I'm talking about embracing one another, loving one another, right? Even if the kid is smoking weed or doing something else that I disagree with, I'm not tolerating him. I'm loving him. I'm embracing him. That's different. That is significantly different than tolerance.
Yeah, I really like the curriculum idea you have, because as teenagers we have to practice a lot before we actually have a habit going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say you're studying for a test, you'll be able to get that A on the test, but a couple of days later you're going to forget everything that you learned. So by having something in curriculum, we'll be able to continuously remind students in the class.
Well, we want to get things from your short-term memory to your long-term.
Yeah.
Studying for a test tends to be the short-term memory, and then I cram it back into my short-term memory for the final. Yeah, and then it's gone again. So habits are more important because habits fuse into our character, right? That becomes who we are, the way that we treat people.
We're starting to notice that mental awareness is becoming, like we're starting to get to know more about it this year. Because, well, it makes sense, because the cases are getting serious, and I'm glad to see that, because I've met so many people who are just struggling with it. And I'm not going to deny, I struggled with it too, like with depression and stuff. But during that time when I was struggling, like literally there was nowhere to go, because people were not aware of it, or they didn't really understand it. They're like, oh, you'll get over it, it's okay. And
a lot of people respond.
But like the way I coped with it was like going to different people, like people that's like the other side of the world. And I did it through Tumblr. I feel like Tumblr was that one site where it was very, it really encourages to support mental awareness and stuff. And there's always, there's specific blogs to help you out. So that was a good way. So whenever I meet people who are struggling with it, I would do my best to help them out. And then, you know, I know it's kind of silly, but I was like, go check out Tumblr. Trust me, it'll make you feel better.
No, it's cool. I think that sharing with other people what worked for you is always helpful. It might not be their thing, right? But I know other kids who run or do art, right? That really helps them cope with it.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, like being youth. I know youth is more aggressive whatsoever. As you said, you coped up tumbling around, you just went across, met people. Why doesn't the youth? I just have a question, being a mother, being a parent. Why don't they first go up to the parents? Or what brings or lacks the discussion? Why not from the home rather than going and looking outside?
I think that, you know, it's a great question, and I love it. I think that part of the hard thing is we know best where our parents' biases lie, right? And so, or are afraid of them. I didn't know my parents as well when I was younger as I know them now. I didn't know the areas where they were going to go to bat for me or not go to bat for me. I know kids, particularly in the area of sexuality, who are just terrified to tell their parents they're gay because they think, that's it for me. My dad is going to kill me if he finds out I'm gay. You know, or stigma around this or around mental health. I know a lot of parents who can be anti-supportive of their kids, meaning they find out that they come to the dam, and there are parents who will stop their kids from coming to the dam because they don't want their kids going any place where it reflects negatively that maybe their kids have a problem, and that means I'm not being a good parent. Parents can often have a tendency to be very defensive about our parenting, so that if it looks like our kids are going anywhere else for help, or anyone might see that there's an issue, we want to clamp down on that. That's not saying everything. I think that the teenage years are one of those natural transition times where kids are beginning to separate a little bit from this primary attachment with the parents and attach with peers. I think that primary attachment with parents is still utterly important. It's hard. Listen, I would love to know the parents of the youth who come to the dam, but I barely know any of them, which I find crazy. Some of these kids come to the dam 5 days a week, and we've never seen their parents. And their parents have never called us just to make sure they know where their kid is going. I'll talk to them, believe me. I'd love to. We're all on the same page. I want the best for your kid and you want the best for your kid. But a lot of them we never even hear anything from, right? And some of those kids will say, the dam, that's where I get to be myself. The dam is where, right? And if they're gonna have something like, I'm gonna talk about my feelings and how I think I struggle with depression, more likely they're gonna do that at the dam than at home, just because that's where they feel the tight relationships are, right? It was different. Listen, I had great parents, and I love the fact that I had great parents because it just shows that you can do everything right and still have kids who do things wrong. Because my parents are amazing, and I still made all kinds of bad choices, right? We're still tight. My family all hangs out. My sisters, me, all of our kids, my mom and dad, like almost every week we are all together, at least at some point, hanging out, eating a meal, you know, doing something together. It happens still. This has not disappeared. And I'm very, very fortunate for that. And now my parents are one of those primary places that you would go. But when I was in high school, I didn't think so. I thought, shoot, if I'm in trouble here and I go to my parents, I'm just going to be in trouble there. I might as well just figure this out by myself so that I'm not in trouble two places. Was one of the things that I thought. Anyway, yeah?
Just sort of like in correlation to what you just said. It took me 23 years, so I'm 23, it took me 23 years for me to go to a doctor and figure out that there was actually something wrong, and that it wasn't just me being lazy or me not participating enough in school because I would either do really well or I would do really bad. But it took me 23 years for me to go to a doctor myself and say, oh yeah, you have ADD, that's why you can't do well in some courses, or if somebody's not teaching directly to you. But it was just the fact that my parents were afraid that they were doing something wrong, or that if I wasn't doing well, if I wasn't doing what they watched on TV and what the normal like Brady Bunch kids were doing, and if I wasn't doing that, then that meant that they were not parenting me right. And then when it was brought back to my parents' attention, it was, oh yeah, that's okay. And then it's still like just brushed under the rug, so I just have to deal with it on my own. So I feel like there are some parents that are involved, but I feel like a lot of parents are afraid that that it's their fault. And then instead of them fixing the problem for the future, they just leave it. And then there'll always be like another kid that they have that.
It's like parents feeling that if they let their son play with dolls, he's going to be gay. Right? That's rubbish. That's not true. Right? But it's similar to what we're talking about here, right? How does it reflect on me that, right? And that's the nature of what we often do as humans. So I think it's great, and I think that really it's for the individual parent that I give the advice, right? To say, just keep loving, keep supporting, have boundaries, have consequences. Consequences are good, and when you have consequences, follow through on them, right? Just some of those really simple things like that. Don't use physical discipline is a big thing for me anyway. I was spanked as a kid, and I know a lot of people still think it, but I think it's kind of weird that it's illegal to hit anyone except your kids. I think that's a little I think that's a little bizarre. I think that is violence, even if we call it discipline. And I think that it just takes away from the creativity of the ongoing discussion of how we are community together, right? Like my kids drive me up to freaking wall sometimes, like I wish they would just listen, but it comes back to me to be creative in learning how to establish something that's going to last them their whole lives. Because when that moment comes and they are like, wow, I need to share this with someone, I just want my kids to know that they know that they can come to me with anything. And they can tell me anything. And the first response they're going to get back is love. The first response they're going to get back is love. If our kids don't feel like the first response they're going to get back is love, they might not come to us. Right? If the first thing that they're going to get is that look that says, I'm disappointed in you, they don't want it. Because most of the kids that I talk to say that it's not the punishments, it's those words, I'm disappointed in you, or the look that says I'm disappointed in you, that breaks their heart. It just breaks their heart. And it begins to fracture all of those years of building up a good relationship with our kids. It begins to just fracture and splinter. Right? We work with some of the science of this. It's called attachment theory, and that's what we're trying to do too as mentors. And there's a lot of stages till you get to that point where a kid is going to trust you with their secrets. And when someone trusts you with their secrets, it's very important that we honor and cherish that moment and make it significant and make it a moment where they feel loved and supported. And if we don't do that, that can be very, very damaging. Yeah.
I just wanted to answer your question of why I went to Tumblr. It's just the situation I was in, I would have loved to go to my mother, but it probably would have created more problems for her. Not in a bad way, it's just I didn't want to trouble her because she was dealing with her own stuff. And it's also because she also said she would probably my mother would also take it away as if it's her fault, as if she wasn't a good enough mother. But really, that wasn't the case. And for me, I feel like it's a lot easier to communicate with strangers who have no idea who you are, because then it's not, then like they kind of like they're not doing it based on, because if you tell your friends, they're probably going to say what you want to hear because they know you quite well. Your mother knows you quite well, so she's going to say what you would want to hear. But when you go to a stranger who has no idea who you are and they just see your situation, they could be straight up honest with you. Like, this is wrong, this is, and they won't be afraid if you get mad or something because they're a stranger, right? So I felt like they're like, and especially if it's over the internet, it's like across the world. It's not like I'm going to come and like beat them up, like how dare you say that to me, blah blah blah. So it was a lot easier to communicate with in that way. I think that's why I was more comfortable, because I did try to go to my best friends, and literally it was like it's like those quotes you see on the internet that they were just repeating that, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously giving me that? I could have done that. I could have Googled that and said that. And it's not their fault. Maybe they're not used to it. But like when I found like someone completely different, like a stranger, explaining to me, I felt like they understood my situation more than maybe my mother or my friends would have. So
I think too, we don't like to ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
Right? Some people say Canadians are so polite. I say that we're apathetic. And meaning that we do not like conflict. Oh, you have a problem? Here's your generic Hallmark quote. Yeah. Right? And everything's fine. Like some people say, oh, you bump into a Canadian and the Canadian will say, excuse me, even though it wasn't their fault. I think that's just because I don't want a problem. You know, I just don't want any problems. Everyone will be good with one another. We're all good. Everything's good. Right? I just think that we're apathetic and we do not stand up and say, this is not okay, right? We don't do it with our First Nations issues. We don't do it with our homelessness issues, poverty, all of these types of things. I'm telling you, man, we got a lot of things going on in Canada that we just basically go like this to because we just don't want to know, Oh, the hockey game's on. I'll just watch the hockey game and be distracted, right, from everything that's going on. I'm going to pretend that everything's good here. I'm going to pretend that racism isn't a problem anymore. I'm going to pretend that discrimination isn't a problem anymore. I'm going to pretend that, all of these different things. Like, we got it figured out, and we're far from it. We're far from it, man. Like, we walk into the store, and we buy a shirt that this kid made in a factory that's crumbling on their heads halfway across the world, right? Like just happened. I mean, we got a corporate office in Brampton for the very same company of this factory that collapsed halfway across the world. And we don't make the connections. We don't tie it. We don't think it's our responsibility. And that is the way that we often live our lives. Don't make any waves. Don't make any problems. Don't bring up any issues. And it makes us feel alone. It makes us feel alone. You'd think that it would make us feel nice. But it makes us feel alone. Right? It made you feel alone. My friends are quoting jibber jabber at me that I can find on the internet, and nobody is sitting down and just grabbing my humanity and doing life together in a way that sometimes is messy. It's not clean and sanitized to get involved in one another's lives. It's messy, dirty stuff. That is what community looks like. And I think that in some ways we're terrified of that stuff at the same time as wanting it and craving it so badly. It's like this catch-22.
I just want to sort of agree with what you said with, finding people on the other side of the world that could relate to your problems, because I found myself in a similar situation where very recently, this past October, where I was just stuck in my own personal problems, and I was like, no one's going to ever understand. I didn't want to tell my parents, and like, I don't need to pollute my parents with my problems and whatnot. So I've never been one to just openly share my problems, so I just kept it to myself, really, not knowing how extremely detrimental they actually were. So then I vent to people online, or I just have a blog that only I can see, so I just vent to that. And then, I don't know, I didn't see it as much of a problem, but then a teacher overheard me talking about it to one of my friends the first time that I let it out. And within like 3 hours, I was admitted to a hospital, to a psychiatric ward, because it was actually worse than I thought it would be. And it was crazy, but it helps me it helped me find comfort in talking to other people when I didn't want to talk. So, and then along with, I didn't tell my parents because I didn't think my parents would understand, which is exactly what happened. So now in regards to it, finding out that I have anxiety disorder and all this stuff, they're so touchy on it. It's just
really
so they never want to like say it out loud, and then when I'm really open with it, they're like, oh my gosh, like, or when Dr. Phil comes on, we'll be talking about something to do with mental health. I'm like, do you want to watch this? Stuff like that. So it's like.
Whereas to me, it just becomes part of the conversation of doing life together, right? My brother-in-law has finally admitted that he's an alcoholic. Right, he's been sober since September and has started going through some of the intensive counseling and therapy and AA and all that stuff that goes along with it. We're starting to blow the walls off of all of this taboo stuff, right? And I'm not saying that you got to be willing to just share your trash with everyone. That's not healthy either, right? That's not healthy either. We need to find those, but we do need to find those healthy, strong, good attached relationships in our life where we can explore some of this stuff with, right? Or a good, healthy, strong community of people where we are engaged and fully doing this stuff. And not all people that are the same as me either, right? That's not going to do it, right? And I know that we have that, and it's good, and there's tons of faith communities out there, and those faith communities are fantastic as well. But I think that we also got to mix. We got to find a way to do community well with people that are nothing like me, because that is what is going to help not just break down the walls of prejudice and discrimination, but it's what's going to actually help me be fully human, right? What breaks down the walls of racism better than getting to know people of different races than you? I don't know anything that works better than that. Right? If I need to see someone of a different color, if I need to be able to reach and grab and see their humanity, I need to get to know someone, right? Who's like that. If I need to get a grip on homophobia, I cannot think of a better way than building a relationship with someone who's gay and realizing they're just a person like me, with hopes and dreams and fears and dreams and all that stuff, just like I have. Right? But, you know, we're different, but we're the same. We're different, but we're the same. Really, that's always the message, right? If I want to demystify mental health, if I want to demystify what it means to have Down syndrome, if I want to demystify what it means to be blind, I cannot think of any better way than building a relationship with people who know what that's like, because that's their experience, because that's part of who they are, right? That to me has been the best, most growing experience of my life, and it's the thing that has just expanded my heart and my life and who I am exponentially, is by the people who have been gracious enough to let me into their lives and learn from them. Because that's what community is. It's not about, you know, me going in and teaching and hey, all you guys become like me now. The best part of community is coming in and saying, we all learn from one another. We rub off on one another. We impact and affect each other's lives. It's great.
Ken, you still have time to say? Did you have to?
I still got, let's say, 6 minutes, right? Well, you told me 6 to 7:30.
Yep. Yep.
So,
you guys, yeah.
I got to run out and get an iTunes card for my mom for Mother's Day.
Yeah, do you guys have any other questions or comments? A really good discussion so far.
I can give you guys my email address and my whatever you want. I got Twitter. I got a blog.
Everything. Can you tell us a little bit more about the drop-in center and what it can offer, specifically?
Sure. I mean, the drop-in center is interesting because to me, building long-term preventative relationships with youth is the key. But it's not as easy a sell as some places that offer very specific services. You know what I mean? Because I've already explained the dam, because the dam is building community together. Right? That's what it is. In a way, you know, yeah, we have hours and our drop-in is open. And right now in Cooksville, because we've started in Cooksville right near 5 and 10, that's basically what it looks like. Kids come in, play cards. We've set up a hoop in the driveway where we are there. We play some basketball. We hang out. We're just starting to build relationships with the youth there, because it takes a while for kids to trust you, right? And to want to take things to the next level. Where we are in Meadowvale, we've got outreach, right? We're going out playing basketball at the community center and running a 3-on-3 tournament. We've been in Meadowvale for 18 years, so
You
we're
guys came to my middle school, I remember.
at Edenwood.
Yeah, no, Lisgar.
Lisgar.
In 2009, you were there, yeah, 2009. You guys came to
Okay,
my class,
was
yeah.
it Robin?
I think so.
Yeah, it would have been Robin who came then to Lisgar. Yeah, I started going to Lisgar, and then Robin started doing it, going into schools. But then we run young moms programs in Meadowvale. Dinner program, moms who are raising their kids, some of them alone, some of them with their partner, but young moms who just need community around them to support them coming together, eating a meal together, being together. We run a movie program at the Drop, and we run a dinner program where the kids are cooking a meal together and then having a dessert discussion together. And then we mentor. And mentoring really is one of the keys. Getting together with kids one-on-one, supporting them in whatever they need. Right, so there you end up dealing with everything, right? So you're dealing with, you end up dealing with mental health, addictions, housing, crisis, you know, everything under the sun. But so really, that's what the dam is about. And the key for the kids in coming to the dam is that's where they find their home, right? That's where they find their friends and family and the people that they hang out with, right? And it becomes the place for them. It's taken different forms over the years, but right now it really is in Meadowvale closest to probably how I envisioned it. Because the majority of the kids who come to the dam right now after school in Meadowvale, they don't do drugs, they don't smoke, they don't drink, they don't skip school, and they're using this community as a place of support and love to avoid those other things, right? Because mom and dad usually aren't home. Or the window after school between 3 and 5 is the time that most youth crime happens, because mom and dad aren't home yet, or just mom or just dad or whoever, and we're done school and we have nowhere to go and nowhere to be, and we get in trouble, right? Instead, these kids are coming to the dam and we're hanging out, and so let's see. I was at the dam today. What did it look like? I talked about hockey. Some of the kids who came by who were big hockey fans. We discussed what's happening in the playoffs. I came inside and this one group grabbed me and we played a game together. Then some other guys grabbed me and we played some Super Mario Smash Brothers on the GameCube. And then the next group kid grabbed me and we played another card game, and another kid grabbed me. I played pool. I played around the pool today. And so that in some ways sounds like nothing, but each one of those kids, I know their name, and we talk, right, while that stuff is going on, and we get to know one another, and you know, it wasn't a formal situation where we're sitting down one-on-one and I'm like, tell me all your problems, right? We again, I said at the dam, we really blur the lines. There's not one kid who comes through the doors at the dam who I call a client. We don't call anyone a client at the dam, but the kids who walk through the doors of the dam, I call my friends. And that's different, and that's really weird for some people in the social service world. And there's conversations that we can have about that. But I can't see, again, any better or more effective way of working long-term with anybody other than you build a friendship with them. So that's what we do at the dam. Is that a good answer?
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ken. I think you shared a huge range of perspectives, which is awesome. And hopefully everyone was able to take something different away. And we'll have a few blog posts about this. And we've been tweeting a bunch of pictures and stuff. And so
Ken@thedam.org.
Yes.
Or Ken@truerebel.ca.
Yeah,
Truerebel.ca is the blog. And